Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this workshop. So today we are going to be covering how to deploy your own rollup in under 15 minutes. Bold claim, we have 30 minutes, so let's see if we can actually deploy something in under 15 minutes. Essentially, I'm Robin Devrel from Avail. Avail is this modular tech stack for rollup builders to overcome challenges such as scalability, interoperability, and security. What that means is like DA is what we have as our main primary layer. On top of that, we are building something called as Nexus, which is going to be this interoperability hub. And then we have Fusion, which is going to enable multi-asset staking. Right now, as hackers, the main thing that you want to focus upon is the DA layer, which is short for data availability, right? So what we want you to build, or what we want to enable you to build, is highly performant rollups. So we are a rollup infra tech stack. So what is Avail DA, right? Avail DA is this validity proof based DA layer for building trust minimized applications. Essentially, what do you mean by DA? What is DA? Essentially, rollups, for them to function, they need data. Rollups actually handle execution of user transactions, but in order for them to actually be secure and verifiable, even if it is an optimistic rollup or a ZK rollup, you need the transaction data or the block data behind those, behind that execution to be available. So traditionally, what rollups did was they posted this data to Ethereum, but they did it via this method called as call data, which was expensive. And they realized that it is too expensive. We need either alt DA mechanisms, or we need to make the DA layer like Ethereum cheaper. That's why they introduced blobs. But blobs still can be expensive once there are people actually using it. So that is where Avail DA comes in, wherein we are enabling trust minimized DA with the help of light clients. Light clients do this magical thing called as data availability sampling, meaning that they can trustlessly verify that the data on Avail, or whatever data that has been submitted to Avail, is actually there and it is available via a technique called as data availability sampling, right? So we use things like KZG commitments and block erasure encoding to enable this, but I'm not going to dive deep into all of that right now. So you might ask, all of that is fancy words. What can I actually build on Avail? Building on Avail is actually pretty easy because we've already got integrations with all of the top stacks out there. So it all works under the hood, and you don't really have to worry about what DA is or what Avail does. You just need to deploy a rollup and focus on your application without worrying about the infra side of things, because that is already integrated for you. So what can you build? You can build anything from RWA, or like real world assets, gaming applications, anything that is related to ZK, DeFi, like high frequency DeFi applications. And the powerful thing here is that we support complex environments. We're not like just someone who we don't just support like EVM or SVM. We support any arbitrary execution environment. This can be a Move VM, a WASM based runtime, any VM for that matter, right? So that's pretty cool. So how can I actually do this, right? So we've got a couple of stacks and frameworks that already allow you to do it, such as OP-Stack, Arbitrum Orbit, Polygon CDK, ZK Stack, Madara, Stacker, Rollkit, Cosmos, Sovereign, SDK, all sorts of stacks there. But for our bounties at this hackathon, I think you already know that we have an Arbitrum Orbit bounty, and we have a bounty with a team called as Cartesi. And I'll dive deep into that moving forward. But essentially, all you have to do is deploy your application using either Arbitrum Orbit or Cartesi, and you can actually win prizes. So how can you use Avail in this upcoming hackathon? One, build a rollup. Building a rollup can be a general purpose chain, it can be an application purpose chain, it can be a purpose-built chain. It does not matter. As long as you're using any of the stacks that I mentioned before, you can just deploy a rollup like instantly, and it behind the scenes already submits data. You don't have to worry about anything there. Now, you maybe don't want to deploy a rollup. So what do? You can build any application. So it can be any application out there, but you want some way to submit data or publish data to some network to make sure that that data is available in some shape or manner. In that sense, then you might want to submit that data to Avail. So you just want that application to publish data and to be able to verifiably retrieve that data. You can use Avail. And the last way you can probably think about using Avail is if you are building some kind of ZK application where you want to maybe store the proof or maybe the inputs or the data behind that computation somewhere to be verifiable so that anyone can pick up that data and prove it themselves. Something like that. You can again submit that to Avail. So in this flow, you can see like you are the user. They interact with the application generates some proof, and they submit the proof to Avail, and then you can retrieve it later on, right? So those are some of the ways in which you can build on Avail. The primary way in which you would build on Avail is by building a rollup or an app chain. So why do you want to do that, right? So a couple of reasons are dedicated throughput and block space. So if you know, like you might be already familiar with this, if you are actually deploying your smart contracts on like Sepolia or Wholesky or any testnet out there, the problem is that you are sharing resources with maybe millions of other users. That means there's going to be congestion. The block times will be variable at times. You don't get consistent throughput, right? By actually deploying your own app chain, you are able to get independent block space, dedicated throughput. You're able to be flexible with your product, as in you can deploy your own chain with your own product features that you want. For example, you might want native account abstraction, but there might be an OP stack that you want to build upon, or Arbitrum Orbit you want to build upon, which does not have native account abstraction. So you can deploy your own chain, you can configure, or you can basically modify the Arbitrum Orbit stack to use precompiles that can help with account abstraction. So you can do all sorts of stuff such as that. We have all VM support, low prototyping costs, low cost of experimentation, which might be also helpful for you. And also, cool thing, if you want to go live into production mainnet, you can also configure your chain to have a custom gas token, so you don't have to pay in ETH. You can use your own token for that, so that might be also interesting for you. I mean, you can use any RC20 token for that matter. So so if you want to look at how your project with Avail works, you can reach out to me. So as far as bounties go, we have two main bounties, but a couple of others as well. The first one is we have a joint bounty with Cartesi. So Cartesi is also right beside us in the booth, so you can actually check them out. So what Cartesi does is they allow you to deploy Linux-powered rollups, meaning that you have chains that run on a Linux environment. So no matter what you do, so anything that you build, it can leverage the already existing Linux developer tooling, environment, etc. That means you just have to code your application in any language that you know, like it can be Go, Python, whatever it is, and you can just deploy. How it kind of works is you have a transaction which is being sent to an endpoint, and that transaction is being picked up by Avail, and it is being sent into the Cartesi layer, and Cartesi processes it, and all of that good stuff. And then we also have some other prizes as well, such as we have a pool prize. So if you're not building a rollup, or if you're not building anything with Cartesi or Arbitrum Orbit, if you're using Avail in any other way, like submitting data to Avail and retrieving data or doing something with that, you can be eligible for some pool prizes. If you don't want to build, or you couldn't build as much, but you want to test out our docs, we have developer feedback. And also, if you want to explore the Avail ecosystem, and if you think there is some core infra or tooling that you can actually provide, such as developer dashboards or validator tooling or something like that, and if you want to kind of, actually try and enrich the Avail ecosystem, we have a best core tooling project for Avail prize bounty as well. And also Arbitrum Orbit as well. So we have a total of $15,000 in prizes. So you can, check it out. Also with Cartesi is the good thing about the Cartesi and the Arbitrum Orbit bounties is that it's kind of like a joint bounty. So if you build with Avail and Cartesi, we are sponsoring $5,000. Cartesi is also sponsoring $5,000. So it's like overall $10,000 you are vying for. And also same for Arbitrum Orbit. They have around 5,000, if I'm not wrong, as their bounty prizes for Arbitrum Orbit. But if you use Avail DA as your, in your project, basically you can spin it up. I'll show it to you now. But if you do the Arbitrum Orbit and Avail integration, not only do you get like the $5,000 from Arbitrum Orbit team or from the Arbitrum team, you can also win prizes from the Avail team, which is another $5,000, so another $10,000 for you. So yeah, you might want to check that out. So before I actually open up for any questions, I can show you how to actually do this. So Arbitrum Orbit, I think this is what we have natively in our docs. So Arbitrum Orbit is this EVM compatible, optimistic rollup based stack. You can easily deploy this. All you need is Docker. You need some Avail tokens to actually do the DA submissions. You need to create an application ID, and you can actually do that by actually going to appid.availproject.org. So if you go to appid.availproject.org, you see this amazing page where you can actually go to, you want to build on testnet, so make sure you switch that. Connect your wallet. So I have my wallet here. Cool, yeah. So it's connected, great. Now I can actually create an application ID. So what is an application ID? Why do I need to care about it? So in Avail, the blocks, basically every block in Avail is categorized or segmented into different app IDs. Why we do this is because if you are a rollup or if you are building an application, you don't want to download the entire block to do something with the data. You are just submitting data and you want to only retrieve the data that you've submitted. So in order to filter through that, you can actually use the app ID metric. So anytime you are submitting data, submit that data via an app ID. So whenever you filter it out, you can get it back, right? You just have to download data particular to that app ID. You don't have to download the entire block data because that would be really big. Like, yeah, our current block size is around 2 MB, so you don't want to be downloading the entire 2 MB block, right? You just have to download data specific to you. So that's what app IDs kind of enable you to do. So how would you do that? You can go to create here. You can put in any name. For in this case, ETHGlobal Bangkok. Yeah, so I'm just going to create application key here. So you will probably need a wallet, such as sub-wallet, or we have a MetaMask Snap support as well. So that's there as well. So if you want to do that, if you want to use the MetaMask Snap, you can use that as well. But I'm here using sub-wallet. So I'm clicking approve on that transaction, and yeah, and the application ID has been created. My application ID is 191, so I'll have to keep that safe. If I ever want to maybe query, if I forget my application ID but I know what my app key is, I just have to search for it with ETHGlobal Bangkok, and I'll get it later on. So if I search for ETHGlobal Bangkok, it should work if the internet works. But anyway, how do I deploy an Arbitrum Orbit chain? That's the main thing. So I have a Docker with me. I have my app ID. I have some Avail tokens. And I also need some Arbitrum Sepolia tokens because we'll be deploying a rollup on Arbitrum Sepolia, where Arbitrum Sepolia is going to be the kind of like the settlement layer, and we're going to deploy an L3 instead of an L2. So if you're building an L2, you just need the Sepolia tokens. In this case, we're doing L3 for actually quicker finality. But yeah. Essentially, what you have to do here is now you just have to pull our Avail Nitro node image. And once you do that, you also need to git clone the Avail Nitro contracts. So this means we already have our own modified versions of the Nitro contracts and the Arbitrum Nitro node. We just pull all of those items. We just change the environment variables. So if you actually go here, I can go to my code here. So yeah, wait a sec. All right, so yeah, so when you actually okay. So when you actually get cloning your Avail Nitro node, Nitro contracts, what you are going to do is you're going to check out at a particular branch. In this case, it's v2.10 upstream v2.10. You will see a sample environment.env file here. You basically have to fill these three things. What is a rollup creator address? It's a default factory contract address that will deploy all of the relevant smart contracts for you. That will deploy the rollup, right? So that's the first important thing. What is your rollup creator address? If you're going to be using Arbitrum Sepolia, you will just copy this one. In case you want to probably use base Sepolia, so we have support for Arbitrum Sepolia and base Sepolia to deploy your rollups onto. So for base Sepolia, if you want to try using base Sepolia as your settlement layer, you can actually find the contracts down here in smart contract reference. So the rollup creator address for base Sepolia is also mentioned here. So you just have to replace with that. And once that is done, you have to put in an Orbiscan API key. You can get that from Orbiscan directly. And a DevNet private key. This is your EVM compatible wallet. So your MetaMask address, or you can use Foundry or anything else to actually create a wallet, right? And then put the private key into that, right? So that's there. Finally, everything else is optional here if you want to do anything else with it. Now, again, if you want to have a custom gas token, you can put in the address of that token, and by default, you can now configure it. You configure your rollup to have that token or that ERC20 token to be your native gas token. So you have configured some of the stuff that you need to actually deploy your smart contracts. Now what you're going to do is you need to go to .script /config.ts file, and you have to basically add this bunch of JSON text. What essentially it means is that if we can actually go here. So yeah, so in my config.ts, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to essentially define what my confirming period is going to be, what will be the challenge period be, also my chain ID, right? So this is where you define what your chain ID is going to be. You can obviously mess around with any of these parameters. For the hackathon, I suggest just keeping it as default, and if you want, just change the chain ID, because that's the simplest thing. Just keep it as default and just deploy your contracts. You can deploy your contracts by just running yarn build for Joule. Yeah, sorry. You have to yarn build for Joule to compile the contracts, and then run deploy ETH rollup. And depending on whichever settlement layer you're using. So in this case, in the docs, we're using Arbitrum Sepolia. You can use base Sepolia as well, like I said, and then just deploy contracts. You'll see an output like this, which has a lot of the, all of the important contracts that are being created that will actually function as your rollup. So rollups essentially are smart contracts, and you'll get all of those contracts deployed for you. We already have a script set up for that, so that's great. So, okay, you've actually deployed your rollup. Now, do you have to actually run your rollup? Now, to do that, you need to have a node, and for that, we use something called as Orbit setup script. Just clone it and create a node config.json file, meaning that if you go here, just create a node config.json file within the Orbit setup script, copy paste whatever's in here. You'll see that you'll need to kind of define some parameters, right? So essentially, if I can actually wrap my view here, so you'll see that I need to define my chain ID. Everything else here is probably already there. I'll need to define my chain ID here as well, my bridge contract address, my inbox contract address, my sequencer inbox, the validator utils. So all of this data, all of this address, what am I talking about? When you actually did, deploy ETH rollup using whatever network that you did, you got an output that is going to look similar to this. So you'll have all of the addresses that you need. You just need to input it into the node config JSON file, and also you will need to define the batch poster. So this is going to be an EVM wallet address. Even the staker is going to be an EVM wallet address. These two should be separate. Just change those as well. And just have an ARB, Sepolia, RPC. Just get the one from Alchemy or any node provider out there. Get an ARB, Sepolia, RPC, or if you're using Base, use Base, Sepolia, RPC. Enter your Avail wallet seed phrase and the app ID that you actually generated before. And once that's done, you should be really close to deploying, actually running your node. Again, now after you've done the node config file, you should also set up an Orbit setup script config JSON in the same folder. Again, you just have to do this. I know it's a bit tedious, but you just have to do it. It's just a bunch of copy pasting here and there because you already have all of that information. Again, you have to define the parent, chain ID, the name of the chain, all of the addresses of your, rollup. And once that's done, you change the Nitro image on Docker Compose. So on your Docker Compose file, you scroll down. Over here in the Nitro, initially it would be something from Off-Chain Labs. You just have to replace it with the Avail Nitro node. And once you do that, you can just run Docker Compose up and your chain will start running. Once you start running your chain, you'll have an RPC at port 8449. And if you just go directly to localhost, you'll have a Block Scout Explorer running as well. So actually, if I try and do... Oh, sorry, wait 1 second. Yeah, I think my chain is already running. So let me try and go to localhost and see if it works. Hopefully that works. Yeah. So if you go to localhost, you see a local Arbitrum Explorer running. So this is the Explorer of your rollup that you just deployed. So any transaction that you do, you can see it happening over here at the 8449 port. You can actually import it into MetaMask and maybe go to Remix and deploy a smart contract and test it out for yourself. What you'll see is that, the transactions happen really quickly. You'll see the transactions, happening in real time on the Explorer as well. So, that's pretty much it, right? So your RPC endpoint is going to be the 8449 port that you will be exposing from actually deploying your rollup or running the node, essentially. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, actually. And then if you want to actually use your chain, you'll need to bridge some ETH from Arb Sepolia or Base Sepolia to your rollup. For that, we already have a script. You can just copy and paste this. Or else, you can directly go to the Arbitrum bridge, and they have an option to add a custom chain, and you can bridge it via the UI as well. But I just suggest by just using the script here, which will just do it for you. You just have to define your private key, the amount, and that's it. And once you're done testing and you want to get your Arb Sepolia ETH or Base Sepolia ETH back, you just have to run this command and you'll get it back. So that's pretty much it. It's actually pretty easy. There's nothing much to do. There's no development effort you have to do. It's just a bunch of setup that you have to do. Like you have to deploy the contracts, the rollup contracts, and you have to just make sure that you configure the node to have those contracts set up. And that's pretty much it. And you can run your, rollup pretty easily, pretty quickly. Same thing with Cartesi. I can show you really quickly. Yeah, so for Cartesi also, it is pretty easy. In this case, you don't have to do a lot of the setup. What you have to do is you just have to install something called as Bruno, which is a node from the Cartesi team. And so based on your operating system, you can install the Cartesi machine, install it, unzip it, and just make sure you add it to the path of your machine. And once you're done with that, yeah, you can just run Cartesi machine and it will work. Now, how do you deploy it with Avail? Is you have to first install the Cartesi CLI, and you can first test all of this locally. But if you want to use the Avail network, which is going to be more important for you in the hackathon, is that you can just run this command, which will do it all for you. So it will deploy your node, or it'll start running your node. It is all integrated. You don't have to worry about anything here. You just have to install Brunodo. You have to install Cartesi machine. And once you do that, you can just run Brunodo with Avail enabled and all of this information. But before you do that, you need to probably register your address. So you go to, it's already there in the repo. And if you want to find that repo, it is already in the prize pool references section. So you just go here and you register your wallet because you'll need that, and you'll get your application address. You'll have to input that into, oh yeah, okay, cool. Oh. Yeah, so you see a DApp address here. You just have to input whatever address you got from that. Once you register your address, you'll get a DApp address in return, and you just have to input that here. And once you do, you can use Cartesi, create my DApp in whatever template you want. It supports Python, Rust, Golang, JavaScript. So, and in this case, if you do that, you don't have to worry about actually running the rollup. Like you are running the rollup. It's just that you have to now, you just have to focus on actually building your application in any of these languages like Python, Rust, Golang, JavaScript, and yeah, it works. And anything on how to interact with your DApp is, already mentioned here. I know we might be a bit short on time, so I'm not gonna dive into all of it. But yeah, if you have any questions, please do ask. Yep. I mean, whatever data you're posting to Avail will be public. So before posting, you'll have to encrypt it. So yeah, it's a public blockchain. So anyone who runs a node can actually see the data behind it. Anyone can actually look at that data. So if you want to keep your data private, you'll have to encrypt it before submitting it to Avail.